Hello, everyone. Before we start the show, I'd like to give you the housekeeping rules. The first one is please feel free to use the comment box. Dale is here with us again to help us with the comments. Dale worked with us at the Love Tank with the project Black Health Matters, and today he's going to be helping with IT solutions as well. The second rule is that it's not a rule, it's just the information. This video is going to be on YouTube and also on Facebook for you to watch later at your leisure. The third one, we keep promising that, but it's a genuine promise. We'll be transforming all of these episodes into podcasts. And the last is that the program will be about 1 hour long.
So what?
It's sudden today. It's very
I
sudden.
was not expecting that. Welcome to PNP with PNP. I'm Phil Samba, and my pronouns are he, him. I have a light blue background behind me, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt with a gold Aries train.
And I'm Pedro Lino. My pronouns are also he, him. Today I have glasses on, which might be a problem with the reflex. I have a hat. I have a dark shirt with a stamp that says, ask me about PrEP. Couldn't show it properly anyway. And then the background is green.
Yeah, I didn't want to do the whole t-shirt thing because you can't see the bottom part. But my we both work for the Love Tank, a non-profit organization promoting the health and well-being of underserved communities.
Yeah, PNP is a space in which we can discuss different topics within sexual health that we don't normally talk about. And when we say sexual health, we mean your state of physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being related to your sexuality, not just the absence of disease.
We have 6 episodes in total with different themes, and we hope that they will not only inform you, but empower you. We will have a guest for most of the episodes, and today at the end of the interview, we're going to give away some gifts for one person who is willing to participate in a little something we call the tier system.
Yeah. So for today's topic, we're going to talk about young people living with HIV. And according to the World Health Organization, over 30% of all new HIV infections globally are estimated to be among people aged 15 to 25 years. Also, increasingly, children who became HIV positive through parent-to-child transmission, that's also known as vertical transmission, grow into adolescents who have to deal with their HIV positive status. Combining the two, there are 5 million youth living with HIV worldwide. According to the Public Health England, HIV testing is low in people aged 15 to 24, but it's high in people aged 25 to 34. There is also evidence that young people, the age group with the highest burden of STIs, may experience great difficulty in finding, accessing, and engaging with relevant online sexual health information.
So as we were doing research for this show, we actually found those statistics to be really shocking. And I know this episode is on young people living with HIV, but I have to make it clear that both Pedro and I are not living with HIV. And those statistics are actually the exact reason why we wanted to do this particular episode. I know usually we make a joke at this part, but on a serious note, like, Pedro, what made you get involved with HIV prevention?
I think when I was growing up, I had the loss of my uncle for HIV, and I always wondered how my life would have been if he was around to support me coming out and being myself, because it was something that was very hard in my house. And I guess I started working with that as a way of honoring him and his memory. Mm-hmm. How about you, Phil?
I guess originally it was around the situation with PrEP, because it was at a time where PrEP wasn't available, and I had an awareness of it, but I knew that lots of people around me and lots of people like me didn't. So I guess it kind of began there, but it's become obviously much, much more. But I'm not going to get into it. So let's get into the interview. So we'd like to introduce our guests, Eli Fitzgerald, Jose Mejia, and Marc Thompson. So Eli, according to their Twitter profile, is HIV positive, a trans man, and their preferred pronouns are he, him. Jose's Twitter profile says there will be spelling mistakes and human rights. They are shy and cheeky. They are HIV positive, Colombian, Latino, a Londoner, and a migrant, and their preferred pronouns are he, him. And last but not least, Mark's Twitter profile, which I helped co-write, like we don't talk about them. Director of PMP work. They are the co-founder of Prepstar, and they have an interest in films, books, house music, and hip hop. Mark, what are your preferred pronouns?
Good evening, everybody. Hello, guys. My preferred pronouns are he, him.
Sweet. So welcome to the show, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Right.
Okay. Give a short audio, self-audio description of what you look like or what your background is like.
Who's going first?
You go first, Mark.
Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. So, Marc Thompson. I am a middle-aged black man with a full beard and a really tatty afro at the moment. Barbers are closed. COVID. Salt and pepper grey, but more salt than pepper at the moment. I'm in my living room and I'm wearing a white t-shirt with an illustration which says "Prep for Black Queer Men." Really nice illustration. It's white, grey background with a piece of art in the background, which is orange and blue. And I'm on my sofa.
Jose? You're on mute.
This is gonna happen a lot. Sorry. So I'm wearing gray. I'm wearing a gray t-shirt on my studio flat. So the background is basically the wall. There's a plant in it and some sort of fairy light and the window, trying to catch the last bit of daylight. And I'm wearing like my headset so that I can hear you properly, which makes me feel like I'm working in a call center or something like that.
And Eli?
So I'm Eli, quite pale, got some curly brown hair going on, wearing a black t-shirt. The background's kind of white, but you can a nice shelving unit and to the side. You can see that. Yeah.
Sweet. So the first question is for everyone. Whoever wants to take it first, but what does living with HIV mean to you?
I mean, I can start. It's such a big question, but I think I can only talk about it from I can mainly talk about it from my personal experience, and I think for me it's like a mix of very dark and very happy times, and I guess I don't know how easy that's for to understand for people who haven't been around me in that process, but it was from being at some point very sad and very upset with the whole situation to now feeling much more empowered, I guess, and in control of the condition and of myself in general. So feeling much more comfortable about it and around it. To a point that I now work sort of in things related to HIV. So that's been quite a change, and I think it somehow meant, or at some point it meant that it was an opportunity for me to carry on working on myself as a person, like on my health, on my well-being, on particularly on my sort of emotional well-being, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do, and that's partly what HIV means to me. Is like it's very connected to my emotional well-being, and it's been a long journey with, as I was saying, like a little bit of ups and downs, but that's kind of and I guess a story of sort of, or for me it means resilience and strength. Every time I see someone living with HIV, not only myself but anyone else, I think of like the strength in that person for living with HIV, because I think it just required, basically it's like a prerequisite, and you get there, but it's part of that.
Mark?
Lots of people always say that HIV doesn't define them, and it does. And I kind of go, ooh, bristle when I hear that, because it does define me. And I've been HIV positive nearly all of my adult life. So HIV is me and I'm HIV, and I can't separate the two, and they run alongside my blackness and my gayness. They are who I am. But I think ultimately it means that I'm part of an amazing, special, very unique global community of 37 million people, 100,000 people in the UK. So I'm not alone. And I think that's really, really important. I don't do this journey on my own. I walk it with, as Jose has said, really resilient, really strong, really brave people who have to manage their condition, sometimes in total isolation, sometimes in a big community like I'm very, very fortunate to be part of. It also means, though, that on a day-to-day basis, it means very little to me. I take my meds every day. It doesn't do any damage to me, and I'm good, and I'm aging. But I also carry 30 years of, over 30 years, actually 40 years nearly, of stigma, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, all of these things that are associated with HIV. So on one hand, it's a really great and glorious thing. HIV has given me more than it's ever taken away. But I also recognize and understand the struggles that sit alongside it.
Eli, do you have anything to add to that? It's okay.
I think just sort of echoing both of what they said, like for me, it was hard, but the silver linings definitely, like I've got a whole community of people who I'd very much call a family at this point. I'm just sort of grateful for that, really.
Eli, we hear a lot about younger people, about what younger people can learn from older people who are living with HIV. But what do you think that older people can learn from the younger generations?
Especially at the moment, sort of our power to want more out of society and the push for change, because ultimately we are the future as young people, and it's about sort of ensuring that all the fights that have been fought are like maintained, and that we don't have to go back to them and sort of regress in a sense, and sort of just keep pushing for more, because that's what we want. We learn the resilience, and then we want to add to the resilience and make sure that the future's brighter.
Okay. Another question for you. I guess you kind of mentioned it a little bit there, but you were diagnosed, like, let's say, after the U equals U initiative. And do you think it's different for people who were diagnosed before that?
I think, like, it definitely it takes away so much stress from HIV, because being diagnosed sort of before that is very much, you don't know what's going to happen to you. You don't know whether you're going to have sort of sexual freedom or a partner or any form of intimacy ever again. And then to have U equals U, to have something that definitely says that you can be yourself, you don't need to worry about you, and that HIV is just sort of a little part of your life. And that's definitely important. That definitely shows that HIV no longer defines who you are. Yeah.
I like that.
Cool.
And Marc, what do you think impact? What impact did U equals U have on you as someone who was diagnosed like before its conception?
Thank you. I mean, it was. Sorry. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, it's just the sense of freedom. But yeah.
And I think that was it. I mean, for me, it was a sense of freedom. It was a game changer. It took a little while for the information to settle in my mind, and I think it was the same for lots of positive people, because we had to really, really believe the science. And after many studies were done in all communities affected by HIV, and once that was reported, that just changed everything. And I know for me personally, lots of positive people, it lifted a lot of stress, as Eli said, and it lifted a lot of burden. I think the really important thing is it really moved HIV prevention, and it became to some extent a shared responsibility. And if we couple that with the availability of PrEP, then positive people, the pressure isn't solely on them. It's on us to take our meds, but we take our meds very often to stay alive and keep well. The fact that we don't pass HIV on is an incredible bonus for everybody. But I just want to also add in that we also have to remember that U equals U doesn't apply to absolutely everybody. You know, it's a very Western thing. It's about access to treatment. It's about the ability to be able to adhere to your treatment, either because of societal things, emotional pressures, etc. So U equals U should be the goal for all positive people. Undetectable equals untransmittable. But we also need to ensure that people have the tools and the skills and the resources to get to that point. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in the UK and globally to achieve that, although we're on the right path in this country.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I think sometimes with U equals U is that we forget that there are people that aren't going to, I guess, go with the messaging as well as other people might. They may have easier access to care or even access to services where some people may not have like a support system or anything like that.
I have never heard of U equals U back in Brazil. The first time, but maybe because I was out of the bubble, I don't know. But I think that's a message that should be in every bubble, you know. But I just heard about it after 1 year living in the UK, and I think it took such a long time to find out about that. It was probably 2019 when I found out about that. So
wow,
2017. Oh, it's 18. So.
And I guess some of the UK data from the Stigma Index suggests that younger people with HIV have a more positive outlook about living with HIV than older folk might do. Jose, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I think it's interesting because as Eli was saying, I have this feeling that young people are kind of gonna achieve a lot of the change that we haven't seen, at least for different reasons. But I think there's in young people like this sort of bravery to start conversations that is very hard to say in a setting like this, in which, well, I'm sitting alongside people like you guys who have been starting conversations about different topics, regardless of your age or what age you are. But I see that more and more in young people, like they're willing to be more inclusive, to have more conversations, to open up about all these topics that somehow seem probably taboo or difficult. My feeling is that it's a generation that has somehow interiorized or somehow thought that this isn't going to stop them, and I think, as I was saying, at least from my personal experience, it took me a while to get there, and I'm sure it's the same for most people. But with the younger ones, it seems that it's a quicker sort of process of like, this isn't going to stop me, this isn't going to define who I fully am, or yes, it's going to be part of me, but I'm not going to let this stop me from achieving the things that I want to achieve, where that is within sort of doing activism or things related to HIV, or completely outside of it, doing other things. So yeah, I definitely think that's I didn't know the data was there, but that was my feeling, that young people had a sort of better outlook in life. And I think the other thing that is quite interesting to see is like the creative approach that young people use to activism in general, not only related to HIV, but to things that matter in their life, and how they're going about it. It's something that I'm really interested in seeing.
Yeah, today we're doing this podcast, this show, because we know that each of you have been diagnosed early in life, and I think the whole point is to understand what have been the positives and negatives of being HIV positive when underneath 24 years old, basically. Fine. So I'd like to direct this question maybe to Jose first, but please, Marc and Eli, if you can tell about your own experience, please do. So the question is, Jose, what was the challenges of finding out that you were HIV positive early in life, or leaving with HIV so early in life?
I mean, I think there's a lot. I think there's challenges both in finding out and then in living with the condition. Initially, I think the first thing that was very challenging was that I felt very young. I felt very, I was 21 and probably 21. I think it was like 2008 or something like that. So I was 21, and I think just being that young and having to deal with this initially on my own, and initially carrying that sort of secret with myself when that wasn't really me whatsoever. I wasn't secretive around anything in my life. I wasn't secretive about my gayness. I wasn't secretive about that wasn't just who I was, and I felt that I had to keep this secret, and I did for a while, and then I sort of find ways to start having conversations around it with psychologists and with friends and stuff like that. But all that process was very challenging, I guess. It was very challenging, especially being Latin American, in which family ties and family bonds are so important. It was really difficult to think of how to break that sort of news or how to talk about it with my family, which eventually happened, and it went well. I mean, it was a journey, but it went well, and it's very good now. But that was very challenging as well. Uh, it's been, and I think it still is, challenging within the dating world. I don't pay much attention to it, partly not, but yeah, I just don't let that sort of bring me down. But I think it's still challenging when dating, less and less than before, but it still is. But yeah, I think as a young person, I guess the main thing was I was very new to sex, and this felt like a massive burden to my sex life. And I think it took me a while to understand, yeah, how to have sex again. So there was a process of like a lot of changes in my sex life, from withdrawing from sex for a period of time and then trying to get back into it. And yeah, and the other thing that was very challenging was that at that time you weren't, or at least in Colombia, you weren't put into medication straight away. So you have to wait for a period of time until your CD4 and your viral load were at certain numbers to then start treatment. So I was diagnosed in 2008, and I only started treatment like in 2010. So there were 2 years of that feeling of what's going to happen. Am I just going to become very ill? Yeah, or I don't know, that uncertainty of not knowing, and by everyone being reassuring around it, but you don't that reassurance really don't kicking in, and you don't really feeling it. So I think those 2 years were very difficult. Was me learning about the condition, me adapting, me finding the information, etc., but without being on treatment. And then when starting treatment, well, the challenges that come with treatment, which I've been very lucky with. I'm still on the treatment, well, with a slight variation that I started, and yeah, sometimes I feel that I want to change it, but then it's like, no, it's fine, it's working, I'll just keep it. So yeah, but in general, those are kind of the main challenges I can think of right now.
Mm-hmm. Eli, would you like to add to
Yeah, I
the
just want
challenge, your personal challenge?
is sort of like the idea of establishing who you are with HIV, and sort of, for me, being confidently HIV positive and knowing in myself that I'm okay. And for a really long time, the self-stigma I experienced was so high, to the point where I felt so dirty. I would shower like 4 times a day, which I kind of miss doing because showers are so nice. But also, as a trans person, when it came down to like any relationship, I didn't just have to tell them about the HIV. I also had to tell them I'm trans, and then it just kind of kept stacking up and stacking up. And I think that was quite a lot to deal with, especially so young, and just having a lot of other life stresses on, and trying to work out how to be a functional adult, and also how to ensure that my HIV doesn't get in my way, and I don't let it get in my way, and that I can have the future that I want to have. And then also I think like some good things is, again, like being able to speak up for people who can't, and I think I'm very privileged in my ability to do that.
Yeah. And how about you, Mark?
I mean, although I was diagnosed before these two guys were even born, which is always makes me giggle.
I think Jose was born.
Oh, Jose was born. Okay. But in all seriousness, I mean, my diagnosis at that age, very young, 17, at that time was a prognosis was I didn't expect to see 90. So I had that burden. But once you put that aside, it's identical to what Eli and Jose have said. Even if there's 30 years between our diagnosis, when you're young and your brain's forming, and you're young and you're queer and you're trying to find your way in the world and your identity and all of these different things, and you've got HIV in the mix, which is stigmatized, and you're not sure how to talk about it or to tell people, it was really challenging. And I think the other thing that was really challenging was when you're young with HIV and there were so many older people in the community, that it's really difficult to find people like you. So you feel even more isolated in the world. And that's why I think it's what this conversation tonight is really important. And the fact that we've got people like Eli who are open, who are on social media and doing that, that should encourage people. But what I wanted to add in was that we spoke just a little bit earlier about things being different now, and they are different. And a young person who gets diagnosed today may not think they're going to die, may be concerned about passing HIV on, but once they get to meds and undetectable. But as Jose has said, once they go online, go onto Grindr or go to a bar, then they've got to negotiate telling people. And there were huge amounts of hate, not huge, that's an exaggeration, but there is still stigma in our community, which impacts on us living our lives openly and fully. And you know, Phil and Pedro, just you guys trying to find openly positive queer men of color is a challenge. So there is still that big issue around stigma and our ability to be open about who we are because of our HIV, and that doesn't dissipate.
Yeah. Eli, just to let you know, if you want to leave your mic muted, you can, because then you can jump in and jump out whenever you feel comfortable.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm just scared of the background noise.
Yeah, it's all right, I guess. Unless it's horrible, then then please mute yourself. But yes, earlier we were talking, Eli. You said you answered the question about what message the young people should give to the older generation, and you said that you'd like them to not give up, basically, the fight. And also earlier than that, we were talking about how many more diagnoses are in the age group between, I think, 35 to above, or 25 to above. I was wondering, how isolating is that for you? Is it at all isolating to be in a group so smaller of your age group, I mean?
I think it's definitely isolating, like trying to find people like me. Like, I have made a good community for myself, so in a sense I've sort of unisolated myself. But also at the same time, I live in a small town. There is no one around me like me. And it is really isolating. And especially in lockdown, it really hit at some point where I was just like, I've not seen anyone with HIV in a very long time. And I was like, I really miss them. I don't know what conversations to have with anyone. And all my friends are sick of me talking about HIV. And I just, I just really wanted someone near me that I could talk with. But yeah.
So yes, it is isolating, you think?
It's isolating, I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think off my head who I even know. So that, yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, you were trans man as well.
Yeah.
What have been the additional challenge of living with HIV as a trans man?
There's also isolation for sure, because it's taken me so long to find a HIV positive trans man, and I still don't personally know any, which definitely feels like I'm doing everything alone. Like I have to sort of become my own like personal assistant, trying to navigate my HIV care, my gender care, my mental health, and none of these things want to communicate together. And then they magically do, and then they don't, and then I'm just stuck there like, how do I fix this situation? And then also I just think trying to explain, like I've been emailing surgeons lately, and in all the messages I've had to be like, do you have a HIV policy? Just to make sure that nothing bad is going to happen, or I'm not going to experience stigma whilst I'm there. So I think being trans adds so many layers of sort of stress, but also it does mean that I do get to be who I am, which is something nice, and I can do that happily, and just little HIV positive trans boy. That's how I'm making my life work.
Yeah, you were saying earlier about like how you felt like showering a lot, and it really broke my heart to hear that, because the idea of being dirty, related to that. I think there's a lot involved coming out. I'm not HIV, as Phil said in the beginning, but I also experienced as coming out as my sex being dirty, being not okay, And for me, it was very frightening to access sexual health services in my parents' house, So I was wondering how hard it is for the youth to access these services when they're still living in their parents' house, Could you share your experience with us, Eli?
So for me,
Assuming that you were in your parents' house, I don't know, sorry.
My parents are lovely, so they kind of just let me do whatever I kind of want, which probably sounds kind of bad, but it's fine. And I tend to go to sexual health clinics in London, so sort of Dean Street, who do understand trans people and stuff, which is nice. So I don't really find it an issue for me, but it's such a trek to get there, which kind of makes it a lot harder to want to test further and want to access any more support. But then sort of HIV clinic wise for me, it's very easy. Just sort of show up and we're all good.
Yeah, because on that reach, I always get younger people saying, oh, is that discreet? Because my mom is very curious. She will open the box, and stuff like that. Or the testing or the condom packs that we send as well. So I wonder which would be a good way to reach out for these people.
Definitely think a lot more. Like discreet packaging always helps, in my opinion.
I used to say, tell your mom is a protein bars, like, it's like just make up something.
Yeah.
But Jose, now I know you're from Colombia, and I think this question is very similar to what I asked to Eli, but with a twist. What have been the additional challenges of living with HIV as a migrant?
I mean that it's an interesting question because for me that came very or further down the line. Let's say that I lived with HIV for many years in Colombia, where I wasn't a migrant, and there were the challenges there just because of living with HIV that had nothing to do with being a migrant. Then when I moved here, you definitely realize that there's a lot of other layers of things that you have to navigate as a migrant to live well with HIV, and mainly there's things like there's things around language and language being a barrier to accessing services, and when I talked about this, everyone is, oh, but your English is fine, and it's like, yes, mine is. It's still sometimes a barrier to communicate how I feel, what's how, yeah, to describe my pain or my feelings, or so language is still a barrier, even if my English is good, and it's not the story of all migrants. So for a lot of migrants, it is definitely a barrier to accessing healthcare, and I think the other thing is like that sort of removal from your support networks that happens in migration processes. So all of a sudden being in a new place, living or having this new life and trying to navigate that with these added conditions. So how do you build connections? How do you tell people who you've just met and who are not your friends since many years ago and who you already trust? How do you build that trust and that rapport with others to be yourself fully and openly? Well, I think that's a challenge, and I think a lot of migrants see themselves in a situation of, yeah, you move to a new place, everything is new to a point that it becomes overwhelming. That newness can become overwhelming, and that newness can impact on the way in which you make decisions or you go about your day-to-day life, your behaviors, and I think that's another thing that I think is challenging. Those are the main things. Then the last one will be like for all migrants, sadly, sexual health particularly is not always the priority, and that's for a lot of other reasons, because they are focusing on their immigration process, or making money, or making a living, or both of them at the same time, or sending money back home, or so there's a lot of things, or raising kids, or doing a lot of things that, well, I mean, non-migrants also do at times, but yeah, I think with migrants is that sort of, yeah, those are some of the other challenges, I guess.
So, I have a question for you, Mark.
Yes.
Am I doing the sexy eyes?
You haven't actually seen, and I've been watching you.
Basically, Mark accused me, and you probably see it in the first 2 episodes, of like giving sexy eye to the camera, and I've been trying not to do it in this episode.
I am trying to do now because I want to have the sexy eyes as well. No, come on.
But on a serious note, both of us are Black and gay, and we know what comes with being both. We know what comes with being Black and gay, but like, what are the additional challenges that come with living with HIV on top of being Black and gay?
So that was a spoiler alert, everybody. Phil's just outed me as a Black. I mean, I think, you know what? I mean, I think it's a really interesting question, because the challenges really echo what Eli and Jose have said. And it can be incredibly isolating. You can feel very alone. But there's also the added thing of, you know, as Black folk, we already have so many burdens and stereotypes and negativity placed upon us. Very often as Black men with HIV, and I can only talk about myself and the men around me, we may also feel that as well. So there may be additional shame and stigma attached to our HIV. And I think also, as we know that, you know, Black gay men are disproportionately affected by HIV globally, that very often I hear Black gay men who have been diagnosed recently saying, now I've just become another statistic. So that again adds all of that burden to it. But ultimately, I do think that, you know, that we get good healthcare, you know, but we may not feel as empowered. But all of the things that impact us around health inequalities will impact us around our HIV. So we need to address those as well.
Thank you. And I guess my next question is I'm going to go to Jose first, and then Eli. What advice would you give to a young person or someone testing for HIV for the very first time?
Go for it. Do not hesitate. I guess, like, yeah, the knowing is kind of the best answer. Don't worry about the result until it comes, and then you do what you need to do depending on the type of result. But do it. I think the best thing that you can do is know. I think something that not everyone knows is that the sooner that you are diagnosed with HIV, well, the better that your health outcomes are. So I think that's really important message for anyone who is thinking to test, even if the result is positive, and that might seem shocking or difficult or sad or frustrating, or that's still good, and in the long term it's going to be good for you. I mean, you might not see it right then and there, but in the long term it's going to be good for your health. So I think my best advice will be go for it, and do it where, however it's more convenient for you, whether that's at home or in a clinic, or
I completely agree. I think especially just don't be scared to do it, because things always get better, even if, like, at the time it may feel sort of like the end of the world. Don't let that hold you back from being able to be your true self and being able to live a life without limits, because it's not a limitation at the end of the day.
Pedro?
Yes, and okay, that was really nice to hear that there wasn't a limitation at the end of the day. That moved me a bit. Thank you for sharing that, guys. And Eli, what are the tips for staying and being healthy in general, in your experience?
Give yourself space to breathe. because for so long I did not do that. And it's only ever since lockdown that I've really found space to breathe and be like, we're good. Life is going to be okay. We can get over things. It's all okay. Like I tell myself this every single night. I sit there and I'm like, everything's fine. But no, for real, just be chill. Like, it's going to be all right. And I think reassuring yourself that everything's okay is really good for the well-being. Also, finding a therapist, that always helps, in my opinion, as long as they're nice. And take your meds, drink water, all the basic human survival things, really.
Yeah, on that note about therapists, later on we're going to add our outreach at preps.mayo email. So if you guys want suggestions for therapy, I know some that offer free counseling, agencies that offer free counseling for gay men. So get in touch with me and I'll try to help you reach for these agencies as well. Mark and Jose, would you like to add to this? How do you like to keep healthy? Question.
Mark, go for it.
Have lots and lots and lots of good sex if you can. That's always good. That's always a good way to stay healthy. If you want to, but it's a really good way to stay fit and healthy and keep connected with the world. And if you don't want to have good sex or lots of sex, put yourself number one. I always tell people, when I used to do peer mentoring training years ago, I used to say to people, be selfish. Put yourself first. And if you put yourself number one in the center and you practice self-care for you, then everybody else that you care about will follow and it will flood out like that. So for me, I personally practice yoga. I have a pet. I try to have good connections with my family, with my work colleagues, with my friends. Right now in lockdown, it's been really difficult to have a good social life. But when we can, I think it's really good to try to have a healthy social life with people. But I also acknowledge that that's not always possible because of money, because of our mental health, all of these things. But just take, like Eli said, just have kind words to yourself. Breathe, take time out. If you can eat well, eat well. You know, if you need to eat junk sometimes, eat junk sometimes. But whatever it is that you feel good about doing, you should try to claim that for yourself. But good sex is always good.
Jose,
I mean, I was going to say exactly the same. Like, put yourself first, basically, and in that process, build social connections and kind of stay informed because I think information is really key to stay healthy. And yes, love and sex definitely are part of that sort of healthy diet. So,
I love the healthy diet.
Guys, I'm going to bring a I don't know if it's interesting or not. In my experience, it can be polemic. Is polemic an English word as well?
I don't know, but I understand what you meant.
Thank you, Jose. So let's carry on. That's more for Jose and Mark anyway. You both be involved in discussions about future directions of HIV prevention, treatment, and care. And I was wondering if it's useful for us to talk about getting to zero. And how do we get there?
I'm happy to go first. I think that, we need targets. It's an ambitious target. The UNAIDS gets to zero by 2030, and people need something to focus on and to work towards. So I support it, and I think it's a really good idea. However, we cannot just do it by one method only, and we have to ensure that nobody is left behind. So our energy and the resourcing and the campaigns and all of that stuff needs to be the people who are most at risk and most vulnerable to HIV. And it needs to be an ongoing program, and it needs to be a global effort. We cannot say we're going to get to zero in London if we're not thinking about the rest of the UK, if we're not thinking about the rest of Europe, if we're not even thinking about Africa. So we have to think about global aid. We've got to think about all of these things. So ambitious target, support it, but we cannot do it unless we are including everybody. So the journey, what the destination is great, but how we get there and who we take on that bus to get there is just as important, if not more important.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say global and not a national sort of strategy will be ideal. But I agree with everything that Mark is saying. I think the other thing that came to my mind was how can we sort of ensure or make sure that once we get there, if we get there, then that doesn't mean the work stops, because I guess that's one of my main concerns. It's like, oh, great, we get there, and then what happens? Does all this effort and all these things that we've built throughout so many years are gonna all of a sudden disappear because there's gonna be this sense that they're not needed anymore, whether that is treatment, prevention strategies, etc., etc. So it's like, how do we make sure that once we get to whatever the target is, whenever that is, we continue doing the work differently, I guess, but that we continue doing the work. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking around it.
So continue the work and make it global as well, right? Because that's the thing we see, like statistics saying that the numbers of Latinos and South Americans being diagnosed here with HIV is high. And I think that's, to me, my impression is that because information in Brazil, at least, is so low about HIV prevention nowadays, that people come here, they don't know what to look for. There's the language barrier, as you said, so I think that just like COVID, to combat HIV, that should be a global. I agree with you guys. And thank you for sharing. But I guess we have some more questions from the audience. Dale, I saw that some popped up during the interview. Can you bring them back, please, so you can take a better look? So Lizzie asked question for Eli. How could education in schools improve around HIV and sexual health?
Inclusivity. These like, I never had like sexual health education in school, and the bit I did was just about straight people, which really wasn't beneficial to anyone, and not brushing over the topics that are seen as taboos, which is so frequently done from my experience, and to really open up conversations on HIV and on gender identities and sexuality and all sort of the things that really aren't talked about that really do need to be talked about, and they do need to be done in a way that doesn't make everyone in the sort of room feel like they've got to be silent and just take in the knowledge. They have to be interactive and fun, because otherwise nothing goes in. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, Dale? Following the airing of Channel 4 Russell T Davies' drama called It's a Sin here in the UK this year, how do you think this has informed younger generations of viewers about this part of history that they didn't live through?
Good question.
Good question. Thank you, Matt. Always with us.
Eli, why don't you take this one first?
I'm trying to think of a little answer. I think it's definitely put HIV into a wider discussion, and enabled sort of, I've had so many discussions about HIV ever since It's a Sin's come out, and I always find them so, either people are asking me for facts or people are telling me little anecdotes about their lives, and especially for young people, there's more of a want to research, there's more of a want to test, and to ensure that HIV isn't a problem now. But it also definitely shows what people have been through and how proud and how much how far we've come, and how we shouldn't take that for granted. And I think a lot of young people now understand that, and understand that HIV is still a problem, but we've come so far, and that's something we should celebrate, but we shouldn't ever forget the people who were there and didn't quite make it, which I think definitely brought that back up for a lot of young people.
I think like what I found interesting about it is a lot of queer millennials have no idea about it. like a lot of them didn't know anything to do, and I found that really interesting. Are there any more questions? Be quick. No? Okay. Wait. Oh, hey, Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Well, if there are any more questions, please email us at outreach@prepster.info. And it's now time for the tier system.
Yay! welcome, guys, to the tier system. If you don't know yet, the tier system is a game that involves answering very, very, very personal questions about sex, of course. There are 4 tiers, and the higher the tier, the more personal the question. We created this game because we wanted to normalize and destigmatize talking about sex, sexual health as well. And in my experience, the more we talk about it, the more comfortable we get. There are questions for each guest and one for the audience. If there's anyone willing to join us, Matt, I just saw that you always commenting, why don't you join us as well? You know, we can get to know each other. So Dave is just sharing with you the link that you have to use to join us on the comment box. But bear in mind that you have to join us on live, sharing your face and your voice. Also, it works best on Google Chrome, guys. Just a heads up. It's a first come, first serve. If you're accepted on the stream, please mute the Facebook to avoid echo. You only win a prize if you ask the question, and the prize is one of our long time no sickness shirts. So it's really, really cool. It's the one we were. There you go.
You can also win a tote bag.
Brilliant. Summer is coming. Picnics are coming, guys. So join us.
Matt says it's
all right, Matt. Okay, so I will start, guys. I will start with. Who do I start with? I'll start with Mark because he's been here before, so I think he's ready for it.
Hold on.
Oh no, escaping! Come on.
I'm right with you. I need to get my sex blanket.
Brilliant, guys. If you weren't here last week, Dr. Eleanor was answered the question if she was okay with painting the sheets or if she would put a towel on it. And she said that she would have a sex blanket. And now we realize that we all have, no, not all, but Mark realized that he also has a sex blanket, you know? So he brought us to bring him good luck. But unfortunately, Mark, for you, the question is, what was your ex good at?
in bed. In bed.
Oh, okay. Right.
In bed. Really fun. Yes, thank you.
Very important.
And what number have I got?
It's a tier 3. And the number is 11.
What was your ex good at in bed? He made me incredibly flexible.
Wow, I like that. I love it.
He made me incredibly flexible. That's why I now do yoga.
Thank you. And now, Jose, it's your turn. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm just gonna say that, like, I'm a migrant, so you talked about tears, and I think about visas, not questions around sex. But I'm still gonna give it a try and do my best.
Anyway, that's an easy one. That is an easy one. It's a tier 2 question, which means that it's not as spicy as Mark. But the question is, what is your favorite category of porn?
Oh, interesting. Okay. I mean, I'm gonna say group sex, gangbangs, but I'm also gonna say I'm trying not to watch porn as much as I can. I'm trying to use other apps and other methods that are not porn. Yeah, but that's just a personal decision. And but if when I do, it's group sex.
I don't know if you should have shared that because now I need to know what the alternatives to porn.
So things like Camphor or Chaturbate or something more personal that is not just porn
Okay.
filmed and
Ah.
acted or enacted. And yeah, I'd rather see someone wanking than just a long 1 hour porn film. That yeah.
Right. Fair enough. Eli, your turn.
Go on.
Okay.
Eli's ready.
No longer ready. No longer ready.
Well, it's a tear
Okay.
but honestly, I don't know if it's a tear. Anyway, have you ever had a wank at work?
No. Because I mean, yeah, because I work from home. But like, no, because my last place of work was a doctor's surgery, and I just think that'd be a bit odd.
Thank you all so much for your participation and honesty. If you'd like to stay with us, you can. But if you need to leave, that's okay. We're going to ask the audience to participate. I didn't hear any noise, so I don't think anyone clicked on the link. But I'm going, I'm going to keep insisting, guys, because I would love to see you joining us one day.
He won't let me
So, Phil?
I said you won't let me take out of the script.
I won't know. Yeah, Phil was like, why don't we know? We have to keep on trying. I believe the audience. But anyway, guys, I guess there's no one there.
Oh, wait.
What?
We got someone.
I won't know. Yeah, Phil was like, oh, that's becoming very interesting because he is my husband. Welcome, Adam.
Wow.
Tier 9.
Adam, before we start, can you please introduce you to your pronouns and
Hi,
also
I'm Adam.
self-description?
I'm he, him, and I am in a grey t-shirt and sat in my car so as not to disturb my husband during his podcast.
Thank you. Wow, you see how I treat my partners, guys. Be careful. Adam, okay. Oof. I'm excited now. I bet I'll
What you
find
gonna
something
ask
new today.
This is giving me anxiety.
Oh, that's a sweet one. It's a tier 1. I think it's the first time in this whole program that we had a tier 1.
Fix.
Yeah. Adam, what's your favorite song to listen while making love? And I say making love, okay? It's when we intimate, you and I, we had a wine, we had a nice meal. And it's like we put milk outside of the bedroom,
Milk's our dog. Surely the only correct answer to that now is Japanese jazz.
Japanese jazz, wow. Guys, if you haven't listened to Japanese jazz, Adam gave you one of the best sex songs ever, if you like jazz, of course. Lindão, thank you so much for joining us. That's my nickname for him, Lindão, which means very handsome, because he is. Look at him, guys. You can't really see him, which is good, because then it's all for me. And we have someone else, I think.
Panelists for this amazing chat for the last hour.
Thank
Pardon?
you.
I was saying thank you to all you guys for this amazing chat for the last hour.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindão. And you get your t-shirt soon. Keep in touch because we need your address. Where's your car parked? Oh, okay. Well, do you have anyone else? Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Oh, I'm so happy that people are joining. It's working, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. I see that you put there him. That's your pronouns, right? Oh, first of all, can you maybe mute the other tab with the YouTube? I feel like Shusha when she had calls on her TV show. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much. And would you introduce your pronouns as well as self-description of yourself, please?
Yep, I'm Kevin, he, him. I'm a gender fluid trans man. Nephew of Marc, I miss you. I remember that yoga. I remember when you said, these are your uncles. And I'm thinking you were kind of right, but I think aunties is the better word there. So.
Okay, Kevin, are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Gosh, guys, I'm paid for this. Can you imagine? Kevin, you had a tier 4.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah. And the tier 4, it's on the edge from funny to serious. So we have to be careful here. What is the worst symptom of STI you ever had?
Oh, well, I haven't had one. Sorry.
Oh.
So it's not a tier 4. Would you like to try another one?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yay.
Okay. It's a tier 3, still high. And it's one of my favorites of this week. Do you like it rough?
Not really. I have chronic fatigue, so no.
I'm with you. I was just saying to Phil, I could have only vanilla, but I couldn't have only rough. It's a bit of need to you, you know. I'm just sharing a bit. I thought you'd like to know. Anyway, thank you so much for participating, Kevin. We'll also be sending you a T-shirt. I imagine we have your address. Do we, Marc?
We can certainly locate Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye.
so thank you for participating.
Bye.
Well, I'm so happy, guys. I'm so happy that you all decided to join us. And I can only say thank you. Thank you for participating. I think that's the end of
Pedro.
the interview. Yeah?
Pedro, just before we wrap up, I just wanted to say something, just if I can just have a quick minute.
Yeah.
It was a question which we had, I know we didn't get around to, but I do think it's just it's important, which is if somebody has been recently diagnosed with HIV, what they should do and what they could do. Yeah, I think it's just because there may be people who are tuning in tonight who have been diagnosed recently. There are a lot of support services that aren't available at the moment. They may be able to access their clinic as frequently as they used to. And I think it's just really important that we just say right now that, first of all, you're not alone. If you're feeling lonely and you're feeling isolated with your HIV, you are not alone. As Eli said earlier on, it does get better. It may not get better next week. It may not get better next month, but it will get better. Engage with your HIV clinic. It's absolutely essential that you engage with your HIV clinic. If you're at a HIV clinic you're not happy with, you can change it. You have absolutely every right to go to any clinic and you can change it if you want to do the traveling. The next thing I would say is engage in some peer support. So speak to other positive people. I think all three of us would probably agree that the best support that we've ever got has been from other people who live with HIV. And one place that I would recommend is probably reach out to somewhere called Positively UK. You can find them online and they have a great peer support service. So you're guaranteed to speak to another positive person. So those are the tips. You're not alone. Engage with your HIV clinician and try to find some peer support for yourselves out there. As we get less and less people diagnosed in this country, we're going to feel more and more isolated. But there are still going to be young people who are diagnosed, and it's going to be tough. It's no walk in the park, but there's lots of support out there for you. So I just want to make sure that we've got people to understand that message before you guys wrap up. But thank you for doing tonight.
Thank you for adding that.
Thank you, Marc.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
so-
guys.
Yeah, I guess now it's time to wrap up. Thank you so much for disclosing so much with us, not just on the Tier Sister game, but also during the interview, you know, and yes.
Thanks, guys.
So would you like to add anything, Phil?
I was just gonna ask Well, we're doing the no, essentially no.
No? Okay, thank you so much. So Dale is going to take you out of this string now, but thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Bye,
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Oh, that was brilliant. That was really nice.
That's the best version of the tier system that we've done so far. The funniest.
I agree.
So let's get into the closing.
Yeah.
So what did you learn today, Pedro?
It was really emotional, some parts of it. I think Mark ended really well. You know, two things that I've learned. I feel like stigma has been a bitch throughout the decades. You know, I think, as Eli was saying, it's not over yet when it comes to stigma. But also something I heard from Eli that reverberated. Is that a word as well? I don't know. Anyway, that, you know,
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure
heard.
what context.
Yeah, I heard from Mark and from Jose as well. Is that you're free? You know, connect to people and you have the support. You probably find the support need. And that was beautiful. How about you?
The thing that I learned was actually about Jose. So I didn't know that after he was diagnosed, he didn't have access to a medication for 2 years. Like, that must have been really challenging. And the way he described his experiences kind of made me understand what it was like. But it's that must have been really tough at such a young age as well.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, everyone, that's all we have for today. PMP is a space in which we can discuss different topics within sexual health that we don't normally talk about. The first few episodes are on Facebook already, and as soon as we finish recording, this episode will be up there. We have 3 more episodes left this season, and join us in 2 weeks from today at 7 p.m. as we're going to be talking about syphilis. So
Mark will be here again.
Mark will be here again.
Answering more tier system games. Guys, by the end, you know everything about Mark. And thanks, guys. It was really great to have you all with us. The third edition of PNP. And thank you so much for joining us. And I can't wait to see you again the week after the next week.
Yes, please follow us on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's Team Prepster, and on Facebook, it's prepster.info. Bye.
Boy.